I am Canadian!
Welcome to this week's roller coaster recap, where Trump just declared himself king from the official White House account, lied about Ukraine, and is still calling Canada the 51st state. But let's be real, how can Canada be the 51st state when there's no United States left? The USA isn't even America anymore. It's just the 22nd Republic of the Russian Federation.
While Trump is busy demoting world leaders, let's congratulate Comrade Trump, the governor of Moscow West, for his tireless loyalty to Mother Russia. May his devotion to Putin remain as unshakable as his spray tan.
So stick around, because while America is fast-tracking its transformation into Russia, Canada is out here getting its first high-speed train, strengthening ties with the EU, and yes, bonding with Quebec.
Did you know Canada won the big game? But here's the kicker. Before the big Canada-USA hockey showdown, Trump press secretary called Canada the 51st state. Adorable. But let's be real. Honey, how can we be the 51st state when the US is barely holding itself together?
Exactly. Canada faced off against Team USA, who is now playing under their new name, the 22nd Republic of the Russian Federation.
It was the biggest Canada-Russia showdown since '72. Only this time, the Americans didn't even realize they were playing for Russia.
And let's talk about the so-called honorary team captain, Wayne Gretzky. Not only did this guy not wear a Team Canada jersey, he entered from the US bench and gave the Ameri-Russians a thumbs up, completely ignoring the Canadian team. We all know that he was a Trumper, but it's just embarrassing. Maybe we need to rename Wayne Gretzky Parkway in Brantford to Hockey Trader Lane. And while we're talking about embarrassments, let's talk about Poilievre's tone-deaf ad that aired during the game. While Canadians were celebrating and coming together, Poilievre was spending who knows how much money on an ad telling us how broken Canada is. Meanwhile, Trudeau was doing what any normal Canadian would do, watching the game at a bar, cheering with hockey fans.
And then there was Trudeau's epic tweet after Canada's win. You can't take our country, and you can't take our game. Short, powerful, and unmistakably aimed right at Trump.
Just when you thought things couldn't get any crazier, the official White House account actually tweeted, "Long live the king." Yes, king. Not a joke, not a metaphor, not a rogue intern trying to get fired. This is serious.
What's next? A gold-plated throne in the Mar-a-Lago buffet line? Welcome to 2025.
This is the guy who redesigned Air Force One because he wanted it to look more regal. Give it a year and the White House will be rebranded Trump Palace DC, complete with a casino in the East Wing.
Fun fact, the US fought an entire war to get rid of a king. It was a thing, a big event. There was tea dumped. Yet here we are. MAGA are cheering for their own King George III. Except this one cheats at golf and dodged the draft 5 times.
Give it a month and he'll be rolling into his next rally in a velvet cape, swinging a gold-plated scepter from the Ivanka collection. Limited edition, made in China. Trump tweets that Zelensky is a dictator, stole US money, and tricked America into funding a losing war. Because obviously the guy fighting off a full-scale Russian invasion is the real villain here.
While Trump is busy calling Zelensky a dictator, Republicans are blocking Ukraine aid faster than Trump blocks his ex-wives from his will.
And let's talk about another one of Trump's favorite lies, his claim that the US is the only country helping Ukraine. And depending on the day, he claims that the US has given $200 billion to $350 billion. The real number, $113 billion.
And let's be real, this wasn't some American charity project alone. The EU has contributed $132 billion plus $73 billion in humanitarian support.
But why let facts get in the way of a good shakedown? And then, to twist the knife even further, Trump and Putin held a closed-door meeting in Saudi Arabia to discuss the Ukraine conflict without inviting Ukraine. Because apparently the people who are actually getting bombed don't get a say in their own war.
And who was hosting? The Saudi prince. You remember that guy? The guy who ordered the murder and dismemberment of Khashoggi? He ordered that and got away with it. And oh, the hypocrisy. Zelensky's a dictator, like he wasn't meeting with two actual authoritarian murderers.
And what was Trump's takeaway from all of this? Well, he literally said that Ukraine has nothing to offer, while at the same time demanding that they hand over half of their minerals to the US. So which is it?
Let's break this down. In 2019, Trump tried to pressure Zelensky, dangling military aid for dirt on Biden. And now he's pushing Russian propaganda while trying to shake down Ukraine for rare earth minerals. It seems like there's a pattern here with Trump. If a country is suffering, Trump sees a business deal.
Gaza, he wants to turn into the Riviera of the Middle East. Ukraine, he wants their minerals. And Trump never even offered Ukraine anything. No weapons, no security guarantees, absolutely nothing. Just demands for rare earth minerals like he was a Bond villain shaking down a struggling nation.
Meanwhile, Putin? Trump's rolling out the red carpet. He's lifting sanctions, throwing Ukraine under the bus, and treating NATO like the real enemy.
And let's not forget, Zelensky didn't start this war, Putin did. But Trump's out here acting like Ukraine forced Russia to invade itself. Like Putin just tripped and fell into Kiev by accident.
While Ukraine is literally fighting for survival, Trump is over here throwing a fit like a rich kid who was just thrown off Twitter.
Imagine being so small that you're jealous of a comedian who became a real leader while you spent your life playing a fake billionaire. Zelensky is fighting for his country, you're just fighting indictments.
Pat King, one of the masterminds behind the Freedom Convoy, just got sentenced to a whopping 3 months of house arrest.
3 months? I've had Netflix binges that lasted longer.
Let's recap what these heroes of freedom actually did.
They shut down the city for weeks, harassed locals, blocked emergency vehicles, and blasted air horns like it was some kind of trucker-themed torture experiment.
Yeah, and somehow still convinced themselves that they were fighting for freedom.
You block a street for 5 minutes, you get a ticket. You disrupt parliament, security drags you out so fast, your feet don't even touch the ground. But if you roll into Ottawa in a semi-truck, harass people for weeks, and scream freedom while waving a Confederate flag, well, my friend, you get a cozy house arrest sentence with unlimited Wi-Fi.
He gets to go home, kick back on the couch, and live stream his conspiracy theories from his basement.
And after all that, Pat King is now telling us that he's got a new job at a social media company in Quebec. Let me guess, Assistant Regional Manager for Online Conspiracy Division. For the first time in modern history, America isn't a security guarantee, it's a security risk. European leaders are scrambling to figure out how to defend themselves without relying on the US. Macron invited 19 nations, including Canada, to figure out a real security plan. And honestly, Trudeau and Macron's bromance is exactly what we need right now.
Say what you want about Trudeau, but if there's one thing he does well, it's international diplomacy. And right now, we need all the friends we can get.
France and Germany are openly talking about a European army, and everyone is trying to figure out what to do if America flips to the other side.
It's like a Star Wars episode. This isn't politics as usual. This is Europe and break the glass in case of emergency mode. And Canada? We're at the table where we belong.
Trump ran on America first. Now, America is the problem everyone else is trying to solve. Europe is uniting, NATO is reorganizing, and Canada just got upgraded to first-class seating at the grown-up table. Meanwhile, Trump is out here treating Putin like a customer at a 5-star resort.
If Putin wanted Florida, he wouldn't need an invasion plan, just a Mar-a-Lago day pass. All right, my fellow Ontarians, it's time to vote.
And if you aren't registered, you just need to bring your ID like a driver's license or passport to the voting stations and you can register right there.
Now let's talk about this sneaky little election. He decided to schedule it for February, in the dead of winter. That makes me think he was hoping for a very small turnout because, let's be honest, the fewer people that show up, the better it is for him.
And why wouldn't he schedule it for now? This is the guy who cut education and healthcare while funneling cash to his rich buddies. But instead of real policies, what's he offering? A tunnel under the 401. Because clearly that's what Ontarians are desperate for. Not better public transit, trains, hospitals, or schools, but a literal hole in the ground.
And let's talk about why and who actually loves tunnels. Remember Elon Musk? The guy with the boring company which builds underground transit projects nobody asked for?
So is it really a surprise that Ford suddenly wants to dig tunnels? We're just one announcement away from him handing Musk the contract to his 401 hole. And then what's next? 51st state?
Because we all know who's really in charge of the USA, and he wants Canada for all those minerals, for all that tech that will help him get to Mars. All right, before we wrap this up, we need to talk about something very tone-deaf. The CBC, our public broadcaster, is about to air a special called 51st State, a cross-border conversation. They want to know what it means to you, because apparently instead of shutting down Trump's nonsense, they decided to give it an international platform.
Now let's be clear, this is not a conversation that needs to happen. Canada is not becoming the 51st state, and entertaining the idea only legitimizes Trump's delusions.
Instead of slamming the door shut, CBC is keeping it open, as if it's a real debate and not some fever dream from a guy who also thinks Zelensky started the Ukraine war.
We don't need to talk about it. We need to shut it down. The more we entertain this, the more Trump and his base will run with it. So here's what we do. Don't engage. Call it out. And if you're as fed up as we are, let CBC know. They need to hear from Canadians that this isn't just bad journalism, it's reckless.
Because let's be real, Canada isn't up for debate, and the fact that we have to even talk about it, well, that's just embarrassing.
Now for some big Canadian news. Yes, it's happening. Canada is finally getting a high-speed train connecting Toronto, Montreal, and Quebec City.
And a whole bunch of other places in between.
Toronto to Montreal in 3 hours? That's faster than trying to drive out of a Toronto parking garage.
But speaking of French, Dave and I are finally learning so we can survive in Quebec and be true Canadians.
Which is why we're using Babbel to sound like locals instead of tourists who accidentally wandered in from Ontario. Babbel teaches you real-world French with online lessons and live teachers, so you don't just end up saying, "Je suis une pizza."
So Trump keeps calling us the 51st state, but honestly, if he keeps this up, Canada might just apply for EU membership. Maybe we can fast track it through Denmark. We already share a border with Denmark. If they accept us, we could maybe become part of the EU.
That could be our path. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Should we start making these videos in French? Because at this rate, vive la Canada!
And check out more from our Canada playlist and our political playlist in the links below and right over here.